Hello, Rebels. Welcome to the base. Steve Hilton here. Kristen Garcia-Dumont is with me today. I just got to say, we are so excited about the growth we're seeing in this show. A lot of you are listening every time when I say, please subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, because people are doing that and it's wonderful to see. If you haven't done that yet, please do so. It's really important that we help get the word out. We'd really appreciate your support. We got a really important subject we're going to be talking about today, and a campaign that you want to know about, because by the time you hear this, the Gavin Newsom recall, it'll be over. We don't know the result yet at this moment, but the voting will be over. But the recall action isn't over, because there's another incredibly important recall that you want to know about, and you, I'm sure, will want to get involved in. And it's the recall of George Gascon in Los Angeles, an absolutely appalling record there on crime. I'm sure you know all about it already, but we're going to be talking today to the people behind that really important recall campaign. And I'd like to introduce them right now. Tania, Owen, and Desiree Andrade. Welcome to California Rebel Base. I just want to thank you both before we start for what you're doing with this George Gascon recall. It's incredibly important, and it's just another example, I think, of this kind of people power movement that's really happening across California, up and down the state. And you're a great example of it. Let's start with you, Tania. Tell us how you got involved in this, why you started this campaign, what's it all about?
Well, first of all, Steve and Kristen, thank you for having Desiree and I on the show. We really appreciate you giving us this platform. I actually was a law enforcement officer for 32 years. I retired in 2018, and my husband, Sergeant Steve Owen, was also on the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And back in October 5th, 2016, my husband was brutally murdered. He was executed by a violent felon. And as a result of all of that, because George Gascon was elected to the seat of the Los Angeles County District Attorney, and as a result, he has given out directives that completely have turned the justice system upside down. And as a district attorney is no longer following the laws of the land, he has taken it upon himself to change rules. And those rules really have done nothing but put victims in a position where now we have to fight for our rights to see accountability from these individuals who have victimized us. And as a result, I have now become the co-chair of the Recall George Gascon movement because someone has to stand up for victims. And we as a community, we as a people still have the ultimate say-so, and we have a voice. So our intent is to recall George Gascon and unseat him and bring in a district attorney who will fight for victims, not a person who is there to fight for criminals. Yeah.
I mean, first of all, Tania, I just want to say, I mean, as everyone listening and watching will, first of all, thank you for your husband's service, for your service, and many condolences on the loss that you face. But how magnificent that you're turning I can't imagine what you've been through, but how that you're turning it into something so strong and powerful. We really appreciate that. Desiree, could you just jump in and tell us how you got into it as well, and then we can really go into some of the details.
My son, Julian Andrade, was brutally tortured and murdered back in May 2018. At that time, by the way, there was 5 individuals involved in my son's murder. And at that time, under Jackie Lacey, the prior district attorney, they were all facing the death penalty and life without parole. As soon as George Gascon took office, he ordered my son's prosecutors to dismiss the special circumstance charges, which would drastically change my son's case from life without parole and the death penalty to now 25 years and only having to do 80% of that time, which is 20 years. It was at that very moment that I knew I needed to fight for my son. He was voiceless, and I knew that I needed to be his voice. And so it was at that moment that I said there was no way that I was going to sit back and let this man do what he had to do, because I didn't agree with that. My son's sentence was death, and my sentence is life. How is it okay for these individuals to go ahead and get out in 20 years? These are young individuals, the oldest being 21. So you're telling me at the age of 41, with a whole life ahead of them, to go ahead and do everything that my family and my son was cheated from. I am cheated from so many things that I could have seen my son be. My son left behind two beautiful children that I am watching them grow. And it hurts me every time I see them to see what he is missing. You know, my son was out to be a father that he didn't have. He always said, I want to be better than what I had of a father. And so I knew that I was up to battle this evil man of George Gascon with my head held high. I was not afraid. I needed to go full force. And that's when I decided to be a part of the campaign.
Again, I mean,
Desiree.
Kristen, I just want to say, I'll hand it over to you in a second. But again, I just want to express, I mean, look, as a parent, I mean, literally the worst, your worst fear is something happening to your child, and the fact that it has happened, the very worst has happened, and you've taken that and channeled it into something constructive is just so incredible. Sorry, Kristen. No,
I was going to say that is inspiring. But Desiree, can you tell our listeners about this press conference? You were there. There were a bunch of victims there, where Gascon made some very dismissive comment about, people not being, I don't know what it was, something about not intelligent or not informed or something like that. I mean, really revealing, I think, the kind of person he is. But you were there. So can you tell everybody about that?
So for the record, I was not there, but I did hear about it, and it made my stomach turn, because obviously he's the uneducated one in this time right now, and this right here, because victims' families and victims are not uneducated, okay? And for him to say that we're all uneducated, I think like I said, he's the uneducated one, because we all know that you can't just label one person off of everybody. And I think that's what he's doing. So I found that very disgusting and very disrespectful to not only that family, but to all of us victims that have suffered through it, because you call one person educated. I took that personal. You're calling me personal. You're calling Tania personal, uneducated. It really hit to the core.
Tania, can I ask you just to speak about so let's start with the big picture about George Gascon, right? Just tell us from your perspective. And actually, I'm sure all the people you're in touch with still in law enforcement, the kind of philosophy, the kind of mindset that he brings to the whole issue of crime. Just describe that and what you see as being wrong with that, why it's so bad.
Well, we can talk about George Gascon, the George Gascon now, but I'd like to go ahead and take it back several years when he was the chief of police of San Francisco PD. And, the tie with him and Gavin Newsom is that Gavin Newsom appointed him to that position, to the chief of police of San Francisco. And then after that, after several years, because Gavin Newsom could not find an attorney who would go along with his policies and his way of thinking, that is the only reason he picked George Gascon, because George Gascon was going to be the person who was going to go along with what he wanted, with his agenda, with his radical agenda. And as a result, he appointed George Gascon to become the district attorney in San Francisco. And he was absolutely a horrible district attorney. He did the same thing to the Bay Area. And he calls himself a progressive district attorney, but he, in fact, is not. When we talk about being progressive or having reforms, when we think of those things, we think of a change, but it's a good change. But he has done exactly the opposite. Crime has gone up exponentially. The crime rate in Los Angeles County has gone up 95%, almost double the percentage from last year before he was district attorney. Robberies have gone up, rapes have gone up. And not only that, because of District Attorney George Gascon, because of his blanket policies, and some of those are that certain misdemeanors are not going to be prosecuted. Just in the since December, since he was elected to that seat, Los Angeles County, my department has attempted to file over 5,900 misdemeanor cases that his office has rejected. And these misdemeanors are crimes that are a quality of life issue that affect all of us every single day. And so this man is coming in and really tearing down Los Angeles County. He is for allowing violent criminals be released from jail. He wants Men's Central Jail closed. So where are all those people going to go? They're going to go back into our communities, back into your community. And then what? But here's the thing with George Gascon. He has emboldened criminals to commit crimes because they know they will not be held accountable. Yep. If anything, that will get a slap on the wrist. We do not need George Gascon in Los Angeles County. And you know what? Quite honestly, if you look around the country, there are many George Gascons being placed strategically everywhere. And I really think there's a bigger picture here. There's the destruction of America. And George Gascon is just a microcosm of that.
That's right. Look how much money poured into that race. It was pretty extraordinary. I mean, there's usually no money in district attorney races. They're local races that basically people don't really pay attention to. And, you know, over $12 million was poured into the race for Gascon. And what was troubling is a lot of that money didn't even come from your guys' county, right? It came from George Soros. He contributed $2.5 million to Gascon. Why does he care? You've got Reed Hastings and Reed Hastings' wife pouring a bunch of money. So these are Bay Area people pouring money into that race. I mean, you're right, Tania. This is about sort of re-architecting society in some very, very dramatic way. And I'm sure you guys saw that video of, you know, those criminals on Melrose just coming up to those group of kids, pointing a gun in their face. They'd have no fear. They don't care. Robbing those kids blind, going off. That would technically be a misdemeanor. Nobody's going to charge them whatsoever. And so, you know, what are we saying to our families and our communities when we don't charge these crimes and we allow this kind of stuff? Just extraordinary. Just extraordinary. Tania, was there a specific thing that, you know, was the final straw that you said, you know what, enough. I know this guy got voted in, but we've got to now get this guy out. Was there some triggering event?
Well, for me personally, it was my husband's case. Like Desiree, the murderer in my husband's case should have been facing the death penalty. And when George Gascon came in, one of his first directives was to no longer pursue the death penalty. And any cases currently on track for the death penalty, which was my husband's case, were no longer going to be pursued as such. But see, that's where the tie is with Gascon and Gavin Newsom, because Gavin Newsom has put a moratorium on the death penalty and just ignoring the will of the people, not just LA County, but California. In the last 15 years, Californians have voted for the death penalty on 3 separate occasions, and he is ignoring the will of the people. He just does not care what the people have to say. He has his own agenda, and that's what we disagree with. Yeah. We want our politicians to go ahead and be here to protect us, especially when it comes to crime. They always want to throw out this, it's a Republican agenda. It's a Trump agenda. Okay, enough. Stop. This has absolutely nothing to do with Trump. It has nothing to do with being a Republican. It has absolutely 100% to do with holding people accountable who commit crimes against people, period.
Okay.
Desiree, from what you're both saying, I just want to sort of capture, I guess, what's going on with this. You know, I agree with you. Tania, the word progressive is the wrong word, because it's not progress. It's the opposite. But the mindset, so it's basically the lower level crimes, as some people refer to them, they're just being, they're not crimes at all anymore. And the ones that even are the serious crimes are just not being punished with the severity that would act as a deterrent. What is going on with them, do you think, that they have this mindset? That's what I'm trying to understand, because it seems, I think, so obvious that if you want a safe, orderly society, you want to send a message that if you cross the line, if you commit a crime, you're going to be punished. Surely, I'm really trying to understand it. What do you think is going on with them?
And so am I, Steve. I'm just as confused as you are. I have no idea what's going on with that, because, as a parent, there's consequences. When your child does something wrong, they get grounded. They get things taken away. They have to know that there's consequences, because if there is no consequences, that child's going to continue doing what they're doing. It's going to get worse and worse. And that's exactly what the law right now. Now he's not prosecuting shoplifting. Okay, so it's okay to shoplift. Well, I guess the next thing is going to be grand theft. Then the next thing is going to be, go ahead and get into somebody's property, stealing things, carjacking. I mean, there's so many things that can go into so much more if it doesn't get stopped in the very beginning. So I do not understand where he is going with his policies. Exactly what Tania said, that he's not progressive. It's more regressive. What we're doing here is regressive. The reason why we have everything that we have, like life and the death penalty, was like people voted because years ago it wasn't working. We were where we were today, and look at the way crime was. So here we are back to where we were, where crimes are just spiked up. People are not afraid of being arrested anymore because they know that, hey, I'm just going to be held for a couple hours and be out, or I'm just going to get a ticket. There's no accountability. And what we're doing here is very scary, because to me, it's the purge. It's the purge. People walking up with a gun on Melrose to rob you. This is a purge, and this is what he's creating. This is Los Angeles County. Something that was so beautiful at one point is now so scary to be walking the streets in downtown LA. It's horrible. We go there for press conferences, and you got to look after your back because you don't know who's around. It's really scary. And for him to think that what he's doing is progressive, I think he has something loose, because it's not the case.
Yeah, what I think is sort of nice about the recall effort is, just give it the benefit of the doubt that it wasn't special interest money that swayed the election. I disagree, but we can go back to that after. But take for a second, it's a legitimate vote. Fine. It really was this experimental, let me try out all these new policies on you in Los Angeles and see how it works. And now we have, plenty of data saying it doesn't work. So the recall effort is this nice opportunity to say, guys, look, it sounded really, sweet, and we liked all these words about social justice and equity. But what it's translated to is higher crime, a higher rate of murder, people suffering. Again, these policies where the hardworking people of California are the ones who pay the price for these misguided policies has to stop. So, I guess I'm going to throw it again to you, Tania. Do you feel like people are, understanding that this is an opportunity to get a do-over? Right? To have a data-driven decision now that these policies don't work, and you can see it in the numbers.
It's an interesting question that you're posing, because quite honestly, those people that take the time to inform themselves are aware of what's going on. And of course, especially the victims, because it affects us directly. However, we've also found, too, that when we go out there and we attempt to gather signatures, there's quite a number of people that don't even know who George Gascon is, or are not interested. But unfortunately, these people are not interested because they've never have been victims of crime. And so we tell them, don't wait till you become a victim. Let's fight now. Why are we going to wait until you become a victim to get involved? So it just depends on us being able to give that information. And I guarantee you that once people know what this man is doing and how this can affect them directly, absolutely, people will sign. And we have actually conducted a poll. And if we were to do a voting today, George Gascon would be recalled.
So let's talk about the mechanics of it now, Desiree. What exactly is the process with this recall, so that everyone listening can understand how they can participate and how they can help?
We are asking for, you can find actually signing locations if you go onto the website of recallgeorgegascon.com. And if you press on sign the petition, you'll be able to see locations that we have available where you can go sign if you wish to sign. You can also download the petition, which you do need to download. You need to sign it and mail it back. So if you don't want to do all that, you can definitely find a location around your area to make it easier. There's plenty of places around. We have plenty of locations in various cities. And so like I said, if you go to recallgeorgegascon.com, the link is, you see there, it says sign the petition, and that's where you'll find everything.
And how many signatures do you need, and by what deadline?
So we need about over 590,000 signatures by October 27th, so next month. We do need all those signatures by next month. So we are begging people to please take this seriously. Yeah. This is about public safety. And like Tania said, this is not a partisan issue. I don't care who you are, Republican, Democrat, Independent. If you care about the safety for yourself and your family and others, then please sign this petition and take this very, very seriously, because one day you will become a victim and you will not want to be in our place.
And Tania, is that you got to be an LA County resident, do you? I'm assuming to participate. Is that right? In terms of signing?
Well, yes, in terms of signatures, we do need 10% of the LA County voting population. However, that being said, it doesn't matter if you live in neighboring counties. You can still come into LA County and help us out and go and gather signatures. At this point, we do have a large cadre of volunteers, incredible volunteers that are out there every day trying to get signatures. But of course, with any type of a recall like this or any type of a campaign, the reality is that we need funds. And we're always asking for people's help. If they can donate $100, $500, $1,000, $1 million, everything will help. And it will go to an incredible cause, because at the end of the day, what we want is law and order and accountability.
Well, I just want to underline that. It's a huge point, because it seems as if one way of it, as we've been discussing, one way of capturing all this is that this is the kind of the worst example of the kind of anti-police, anti-law and order, pro-criminal, kind of defund the police mentality that, as you both mentioned, is kind of sweeping the country, and it will be a massive rebuke to that whole movement if we can get this done. And it seems like that's a lot of signatures. I mean, proportionally, that's a higher bar, isn't it, than the Recall Newsom people had to get for their recall on the ballot. Am I understanding that right? That seems like a lot that you have to get.
It does, but with the Newsom recall, remember, they had to collect 2 million signatures in order to have that number to be able to have a special election, such as we're having today. Vote yes on recalling Newsom, please. With this recall, call me crazy if you want, but to me, there's a destruction of America that's happening before our very eyes. Mm-hmm. And there are people that have their heads buried in their sands. And I want to speak up about law enforcement. They're my family, and I'm a proud member of law enforcement. And what is happening to law enforcement right now is absolutely horrible. Law enforcement is being demonized. The leftist media, and I'll say it, the leftist media is just, they control the masses with what the information that they put out. And what we're seeing is law enforcement, they're leaving their jobs for other professions. They are leaving the state of California. They're retiring early. They don't want any part of this, because in order for us to be an effective unit, a law enforcement unit, we need the support of our leaders, of our district attorneys, who are going to file cases that we go and arrest people for. We are law enforcement officers and we enforce the law. But in order to be an effective unit, that needs to have a follow through with the district attorney's office. And so right now there's a breakdown between law enforcement and the district attorney's office. And not only that, but with Gavin Newsom as well. There are no leaders that have a backbone right now that are defending law enforcement. You know what? We better be careful what we wish for, because this is going to be a nation of lawlessness. And we're going to want our law enforcement back. And guess what? We have beat down law enforcement so much that there's not going to be anyone here to protect you. Now, think about this. Your daughter, your son is being raped, being tortured, or you're being attacked. You get on the phone and you call 911. And what if no one answers? That's where we're going to get to if we continue this defund the police. No, ladies and gentlemen, we need to defend our police. And I can tell you from personal experience, 99% of us are good people. And the very core and the very reason why we do this job is for love of fellow man.
So well said. So well said. And I really think you made a great point, Tania, which is that people really need to get informed. And that's why, we're so delighted to have you guys on the show. Because even when defund police became this, movement, when I would ask young people, what does that mean to you? Their answers are actually very pro-police. They're not realizing, they're parroting back something that they're seeing on TikTok. They see it on Snap. It's a way for them to bond socially, but they actually fundamentally do not believe that we should be stripping law enforcement of authority or funds. They just have this nebulous concept that there's some cops out there that are racist and that's bad. That's literally as far as the thought process goes. And so, God bless the two of you getting out there and saying this actually has real world consequences in terms of people's lives being destroyed when you don't have police officers that feel that they can do their jobs, because ultimately the crimes are not prosecuted. So, getting out the word is fantastic, because I don't think people believe that defund police movement the way I think social media wants everybody to think they do.
Yeah, I just want to add also that, again, I totally agree. You just put it so well, Tania, that, of course, and I've said this all along, of course it's true, as with any massive organization with lots of people in it, that you want to be improving it the whole time. And so, yes, there are reforms of the police and processes, not the way it works, that I would support. When we saw all the focus on this, last year, with George Floyd, President Trump put in place some practical things, working with the police officers around the country and their representatives, some sensible, practical things. For example, the kind of data sharing in terms of police officers who've been fired from one force not showing up the next day at another place without, people understanding what they did, etc. So, yeah, you can do sensible reforms. I'm for that. And of course, we don't want to see racism anywhere. But what we've seen instead of that is not police reform, it's retreat. It's just this total collapse of support from the leadership around the country. And in exactly those places around the country where you've seen the defund movement, the defund the police movement most aggressively applied, that's where you've seen the biggest increases in crime of all kinds, violent crime, property crime, all types of crime. And guess who are the victims of it? The exact people that the politicians who parrot these slogans say that they speak for. The poorest, the most vulnerable, black communities, Latino communities. It's so disgusting. I so agree with what Kristen just said. That thank God that you're actually doing something about it. Desiree, I wanted to ask you, just again, coming back to the practicalities, right? We've got to try and get this over the line. Where are you in this campaign? What do you know? Roughly how many signatures you have? How much further you need to go in the next month and a bit?
So we roughly have a little over 200,000, but we do have more coming in. We haven't counted on, so I'm sure there is more. But roughly, that's where we're at right now. But like Tania said, we have a lot of volunteers out there doing great work, collecting massive signatures. We've had a great week last week. So we have volunteers that I'm so grateful for, because a lot of these volunteers are not even have ever been a victim, and they're just so passionate about what's going on. I've met a couple, and I've gone myself just to introduce myself and say thank you, for me personally and for my son and for all of us victims that are going through what we're going through. It's just awful, to be re-victimized. And when this happened 3 years ago, I didn't know that, 3 years later, I would be sitting here with you guys speaking about my son and fighting for him, because I really thought that, we had a justice system. And so I thought, let the justice system take care of this. And then to come to find out that there is no justice system and the justice is for the criminal, that has been a real eye opener. And it's asinine to me. So, we do have some work to do, but I'm staying positive and hopeful that, with the signature gatherers and with now providing the website of recallgeorgegascon.com, that people will go on there and after listening to Tania and I and hearing how important this is to not only us, but to all of us, that people will go in and sign.
Yeah, we've got, and it's really important we help get the word out. Everyone listening, right? You've got to help get the word out. Of course, if you live in LA County, make sure you sign, go to the website, but you can help even if you don't, right? You can get, as Tania and Desiree have said, you can give money, you can go and volunteer, you can talk to me. This affects everyone around the country because, as I said, it's a real pushback against this crazy defund the police movement, which is causing this crime spike everywhere.
Right. And even as Gavin said, as California goes, so goes the rest of the nation. And I always say, watch what's going on in LA County. It's a huge county. And if they get away with it in LA, it gets brought to the rest of the state and it extends to the country. So I don't care if you're not in LA. You got to get involved. You got to go check out this website. You need to donate whatever you can. Everything helps. Help gather signatures. This is important that we say as Californians, we want our communities to be safe because Steve's right. It's the Black and brown communities that suffer the most. So we need to protect our families and we need to protect our communities. We need to fight crime and we need to stop ushering in these peoples with these big donors who have nothing to do with California or the communities that suffer. And it's the citizens' way to say enough, stop, basta, as my grandma would say, like it just absolutely enough. Right. We want law and order DAs that enforce the will of the people. We want 3 strikes, all the things we voted in. That's what the DA is supposed to do, is enforce our will.
Yeah, actually, I'm just going to, and in fact, the way you put it like that, it's so infuriating, especially, George Soros. I mean, look, he's Hungarian like I am, right? Hungarian immigrant. And maybe that's why I have a sort of special level of hatred for what he's doing here. But like, he's not affected by this, right? Living in some, I don't know where he lives, some mansion in New York somewhere. I don't know. God knows. But like absolutely zero impact on him, this kind of craziness that he's funding right across the country. Desiree.
It really is, actually, for somebody to give money to this cause, to destroy our justice system, and to destroy, the police. They got to be evil. And to me, George Soros is evil. It's evil money. It's an evil person who's bringing out these, people to go for DAs. Like I just found out that there's going to be a DA running against Todd Spitzer in Orange County soon. So people in Orange County need to wake up because they cannot get this other person in office because they're going to have a George Gascon on their hands. So yes. And by the way, my son was half Hungarian. So Steve, my son was half Hungarian. So
there you are.
And that's so that when connection. I heard Soros was Hungarian, I'm like, really? That's very interesting.
Yeah, well, we're not all like him. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, no, I know that. I know.
Exactly. All right, Kristen, any thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, everybody go to, what is the website again, Tania? Can you say what it is so people don't forget?
RecallGeorgeGascon.com.
Fantastic. I mean, really, I think people have been paying attention to getting Gavin out. Let's get one crook out first. But then, we really need to move to these next movements like yours, because, a citizen movement has been kicked off in the state of California. It's Gavin first, Chesa Boudin in San Francisco, George Gascon in LA. And Steve and I are going to make sure we get the word out and help people like you who are actually putting in the shoe leather to really try to fix California. So thank you.
And so any quick last thoughts? I'll give you the last word, Tania first, and then Desiree to close us out today. Tania.
Yes, please. We do need more volunteers and we need funding. We can still do this. We're down to about 50 plus days. But you know what? There's always hope and we can do this. We just need to get involved. Please get involved.
Desiree, last word.
Same thing. I'm going to repeat exactly what Tania said. We need signatures. Please, we need signatures. This is important. We need to get this man out of office for all of our safety. And if please more volunteers, you can volunteer, and definitely donations. Anything helps right now at this point with us.
Fantastic. Well, we really appreciate you being with us today. And of course, what you're doing is so great. And we'll give it every possible push that we can. Tania and Desiree, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Wow, Kristen, I'm just in awe of what they're doing there. I just so want them to be successful.
I know they deserve it. And, this is the time to take our state back.
Yeah, it's just so powerful. This is what that we've mentioned it on other shows as we've been in the leading up to the recall. That people have just had enough of the craziness and they're pushing back. And it's really thrilling to see it, and that's I'm personally so happy about it because that is what this entire show is all about. That's literally why I wanted to call it the name that we called it, California Rebel Base, as a base for all the people who've had enough. They're fighting back. It's the rebels who are saying we've had enough of the craziness, and we're going to fight. And that's what these two ladies are doing. It's just so brilliant. So pleased we could talk to them today. Very, very inspiring. Kristen, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all the rebels listening.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. Thank you for subscribing if you already have. If you haven't, please do that. As you can see, we have some really important conversations going on here. Subscribe to the podcast at Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review. That's much appreciated and helps us get the word out. See you next time at California Rebel Base.